Hello, class. It is Joseph, your lecturer in science and religion. I'm sorry about the dark lighting there, the color. I'm just in front of a curtain here. Anyway, I just wanted to give one last very, very brief lecture. Very sad we couldn't discuss this in person and have a few student presentations in person on climate change. But what I want to recommend is that you watch, it's a few years old now, so it's not as updated with statistics, but the Al Gore TED Talk. I'll put a link up on it. It's only 20 minutes, but it's excellent. It's inspiring. It's mostly accurate. It's pessimistic at first, and then he becomes increasingly optimistic. Excellent. The only real point that I think I could drive home in a few minutes here is that climate change is happening, that climate change fundamentally is about the greenhouse effect, and I'll explain that very briefly. So if there's one item you come away from in this video, and from the week on climate change and theology, is that climate change is created by us. It's part of the effects of the Industrial Revolution, and it's about carbon and other greenhouse gases being released into the atmosphere, and it creates a greenhouse warming effect. So climate change is not about erratic weather, it's literally about global temperature going up. It is about global warming, okay? And that does cause some really intense storms and some erratic looking weather, but when you have a lot more moisture and heat all over the planet, it intensifies hurricanes and tornadoes and rainstorms, so on and so forth. So what is the greenhouse effect? So let me just review that. The greenhouse effect is that the atmosphere itself turns into something like a blanket, and it begins to trap the heat that comes in from the sun. Typically it bounces off the surface, most of it escapes, okay? That is still happening, most of it still escapes, but just a little bit less is escaping because of what is called parts per million of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Parts per million is an atmospheric term that literally means you can trap 1 million molecules or parts, 1 million molecules of air in a bottle, and you only need about 400 of those out of 1 million to be greenhouse gases to turn the atmosphere into something like a blanket that warms and traps heat. And we are currently at 413. You can go to NASA, has a global climate change website. We are, in the year 2007, we were at 380. We are now in the year April 2019 at 413. Last April when I gave this talk, we were at 411. In the year 2000, we were at 200 roughly. So we've more than doubled the parts per million, pumping and pumping and pumping all kinds of gases into the atmosphere. We've doubled it in 20 years. And so some greenhouse gases are just, having some of them in the air is no problem. Just gets dispersed into the atmosphere, but after a while it starts filling up the atmosphere. And it doesn't take that much, just 400 parts per million. And once that happens, it needs to raise the global temperature to about 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. So the temperature of the whole globe, right? If you take a temperature with a thermometer, all it has to go up is just a couple degrees centigrade, and it starts to go off kilter. And if we hit 3 degrees Celsius, that's when you start seeing deserts spread across western United States. Spain turns into a desert. That's when you see Florida underwater because the ice caps have melted, so on and so forth. And you can see the global temperature rise on NASA's website as well. And we are currently at, let me see, I'll give you the website. I think we're at 1 degree Celsius. So our global temperature right here, just tracking it down. We are at 0.98 degrees Celsius, 1.76 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the hottest it's ever been since 1880. And it just keeps going up, the trend. It goes like this. It's very much like a linear trend. It's not going down and up, down and up, down and up. It literally just keeps going up, okay? And so we are in a stage of global warming. A theological response to that would be multifaceted, and it would probably be rooted in the doctrine of creation, that God's created the earth not as an object at our disposal, but as something we should care for and see as good, not something to exploit, not even an object that's part of God's creation. It's not at our disposal. It's not something we can just degrade. We might think humans are wonderful and are the crowning achievement of God's creation, which is fine, but God also created the earth, right? It's not some object we can just throw away unreflectively. And so a theological response would be rooted in creation, probably incarnation, which also tells us the body in the world is important. And there are some resources at the end of the slides that I give you for other books to read. It's a huge topic. It's a hot topic for obvious reasons, and I'll just leave it at that. You can look at the slides, look at the Al Gore YouTube clip, and please do get up your... everybody should have their presentations uploaded at this point on Loop. Submit them there. And I'll see you when I see you. I'll start grading your final papers as they come in, and email me if you ever have questions. Thank